Hey, dude.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome back. Okay, we just finished 103,
Yep,
where
203.
203. Yep, we just finished 203, where a shitload happens.
This is not a beer. You're gonna hear a sound, but it's actually
It should
this.
be a beer. It should be a beer. Oh, because we added something to our season 2 drinking game, which was
Oh, we did
drink every
trains.
time there's a train. Um, uh, and we have no guest this week, partly
Yes.
because I'm going to do something stupid and cheesy. Our real guest this week
Okay.
is Lance.
Okay.
I have so many Lance questions. I want
No,
to talk to you about
no, we
Lance.
not this episode. We got to get to the real Lance stuff, right? He's
Well,
only been introduced. Okay,
I'm
we
talking
can
about
talk
some
about
of Lance. Um,
Okay,
okay, so
it's interesting to watch how the DNA of the show has changed in season 2.
yeah,
I mean, it's just so much broader. I mean, before, yes, they had all these different things, and you saw these the motivations of each character and what was driving them, and it was usually some kind of Interracine prison stuff
Interracine,
going
by the
on.
way,
Thank
very
you.
impressive word.
Thank you. And now it's, I mean, yes, you have Maricruz and you have C Note's family and stuff, but like they're all out on these adventures in the world and they're going like this, and you very much have the sense that they're all going to be somehow coming back together. But it resembles season 1 in a lot of ways, but it's just such a broader backdrop, I guess, is the
Well,
difference.
and it's cool because the family motivation, I mean, it was always there for Sucre and C Note, but to see it feels so much more tangible. It feels like Michael got his family, right? Like he and Link are actually together.
Yes.
And there was a lot of Sucre and C Note, which partly I love because I love the women in their lives and they're such amazing actors. But also no Lane. So there was no tweener. We still haven't seen
tweener.
Haywire since he pedaled off on a bike.
And no teabag.
And no teabag, which is really interesting.
Everybody's out in the wind.
Everybody's
man.
out in the wind.
Also, can I just say, I just from a personal experience level, I remember getting to Dallas in such a hurry and pre-production, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in one scene in the first 3 episodes. You're in 3.
Yeah, and all of those.
I don't remember having all that downtime.
I do. Because
You're like, why did I hustle my ass down
well,
here?
thankfully, I mean, unlike you, right? Like I was married by then and Josh came with me. And so we were just like, all right, well, let's get to know Dallas a little bit. And
Right. Yeah.
and there was fun stuff. Did you ever go to Schlitterbahn? I just like saying
Excuse
it.
me?
I know. Schlitterbahn. Schlitterbahn it's one of those places in like hill country in Texas where you can go rafting, but like it's the wildest thing. It's in New Braunfels, I believe. It's an entire river that comes out of the ground fully formed. So it's not like a little trickle that becomes a river. It's like there's a hole in the ground.
Whoa.
And a whole river comes out of it. So we went down and you just like you park your car and they give you a tube and you tube down the river, and by the time you're done, you know, you've got your like little floating cooler of whatever you're bringing, and then they bus you back. It is so much fun. So that's basically what I was doing for the 7 days an episode I wasn't shooting.
Wow.
It was great.
Wow.
It was great.
I don't remember what I was doing.
For now, you want to Calistine? Should we Calistine and like get ourselves started?
Let's talk about the Calistine Index for episode 203, season 2, episode 3,
which was called Scan, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, episode 203 was titled Scan, premiered on September 4th, 2006, directed by Brian Spicer, who did a killer job. And
great job.
You mentioned this when we were doing the rewatch. I actually don't have strong memories of him.
I don't either.
But he clearly is fantastic. It was written by Zach Estrin. And if this is your, dear listeners, first season listening to our podcast, briefly, Zach passed away quite unexpectedly a couple of years ago. We did an episode at the end of last season, which was called Remembering Zach Estrin. Inviting you to give it a listen. He was an extraordinary person and everybody had wonderful things to say about him.
Yes.
So this wonderful episode he wrote, which was just so fantastic. So episode delivered 9.29 live viewers. in the 8 PM time slot. I think that's up from last week.
It seems what
Um,
yes.
Against reruns of Wife Swap on ABC and Two and a Half
Sure.
Men on CBS, not to be confused with Two and a Half Wife Swaps, which is a totally different show.
Also right.
Um,
Also, wife swapping your men.
do
Swapping 2.5.
so we'll work on that, we'll workshop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, on NBC, they were doing original programming, and I didn't know this until I did this thing for this episode. Now I'm dying to see it. It's a special called Different Strokes Behind the Camera, the unauthorized story
Oh,
of
no.
Different Strokes.
Oh, no.
I mean, I don't know how that didn't win the night, but anyway.
To recap the show, Mahone zeroes in on Michael and Link's car, which was towed to a Chicago lot, but Michael gets there first. Unfortunately for the brothers, the backpack containing their fake IDs is not in the vehicle. Elsewhere, Sarah is released from the hospital, but that's not necessarily good news, especially after a difficult meeting with her
Who's
father, the
really a
governor.
dick about it.
Yeah. She goes to rehab where Kellerman introduces himself under a different name, Lance. Sucre and C-Note are determined to get to their loved ones no matter what, and Sucre learns that Maricruz is going to marry Hector in Vegas, as he says, as Sucre says, the city? Bellick and Gary go on a bounty hunting business together, and they encounter Nika Volek, Michael's legal wife.
Small note, because the recap for this show was a little bit of a weird one. I had to do some editing. I don't think Sarah goes to rehab, right? I think she's at a meeting. I think she's living
Yes, I think rehab is a misnomer
a
there.
free life. Anyway,
Yes,
not that it
she's
matters that much. But.
at an NA meeting. Yes.
Okay, pop culture at the time. On the very day this episode aired, September 4th, 2006, Beyonce
Jesus.
released her second solo album titled B-Day, selling over 500,000 copies in the first week and debuting at number 1 on the US Billboard 200. Naturally, the album would go on to win the Grammy for Best Contemporary R&B. Also, on the same day, Steve Irwin, better known as the Crocodile Hunter, died from an injury from a stingray while filming a documentary in the Great Barrier Reef. I remember that hit me hard.
In world events, a piece of good news, Katie Couric made history this week as the first female solo anchor of a network evening news broadcast on CBS. And in heartbreaking news, September 26th was the last known sighting of the black rhinoceros seen in Cameroon's northern province. The species was officially declared extinct in 2011. Now our intern is making us cry on camera.
Yeah,
that's really
we have a lovely intern who puts these together for us. And
okay,
yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Okay, let's move on to less heartbreaking things. We'll be right back after this to talk about it.
Okay, so we're back. I want to start talking about Lance. I know that there's not a lot of Lance in this episode. We just discover that he exists as a persona. But my question, because we've actually never talked about this, I don't think. Did anybody come to you and say, we're going to do a character for Kellerman? Do you have any thoughts? Or did they deliver Lance fully baked to you? What was your input level?
I don't remember I remember there being a lot of conversations about Kellerman stuff and about Kellerman motivational stuff. But in terms of like Owen Kravecki and Lance, in terms of characters and characterization, I remember there being no discussion about that whatsoever.
Like it showed up on the page and you're like, okay, I
mean, I think that there was a pre-season conversation or certainly pre-episode conversation either with Paul or Matt saying, hey, we're doing this fun thing where you're gonna track Sarah by pretending to be a civilian and you're gonna befriend her. And I don't remember if Lance being gay was something I knew right away or if it wasn't until it came up in the episode when I'm in your apartment where he's trying to put her at ease.
It felt like I remember shooting that scene and I remember getting the script going, oh, and it almost felt like Kellerman is laying the track in front of a moving train. And that maybe the writers kind of did too, that like they got into that moment and were like, he's got to be gay or this is really creepy.
Right. Or it makes it too creepy.
Yeah.
And for the audience's perspective, it makes him, the more credible he seems as a normal human, the more threatening I think he becomes to Sarah because you're like, oh, I'd fall for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So the thing that I always, in that Meisner way, the thing I was always thinking about as an actor, which I think would be effective for anybody even pretending to be another human in trying to fool somebody, is how's this making you feel?
Mhm, mhm.
Like, what's going to make
Yeah.
her the most comfortable? What's going to
Mhm,
let her be comfortable enough to let me in and tell me things, let me into her apartment? So it was all about not being threatening, being friendly, and doing whatever I needed to do
mhm.
to, be less Kellerman-y in a way.
Well, and, I hadn't thought about this until we were just rewatching it, but in a lot of ways, the way you played Lance protected Sarah as a character, which is to say, like, if you do some big caricature that the audience is like, "Oh my god," and it's a bit of a groaner or an eye roll. Whoa, by the way, I think my camera just reframed itself.
Yeah, you could. There's a setting. I'll teach you afterwards how to.
Let's shut that off. That was so weird. It, like,
Yeah,
zoomed in.
mine was doing it originally. You got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, camera, if you're AI, please don't do that again. Back out. Anyway, um, I in making Lance so credible, you don't make Sarah look stupid,
Uh,
and there are so many traps for the characterization of Lance that then make it look like, What the hell is wrong with her?"
right. Yeah,
That I actually
it makes her
think.
a fool.
Right. Right, 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 and you took care of both of us, that way, which is kind of, not surprising, but also
Well, it was great.
cool.
It was a great that whole season was so fun.
Excuse me.
I got to do some
Oh my god.
it's really following you around, man.
I sneezed and it backed up.
I liked it. I'm just picturing that there's a camera person there with like just like
This is my camera operator, Lance.
yeah. Yeah, and there's more Lance to talk about later, I think, because
Oh, for sure.
they let us go a little bit. I mean, it was so different than season one in that there was
Yeah.
the scene work is it went all the scenes I was playing went from a very clear practical objective of getting a piece of information or killing
Mhm.
someone or it's threatening someone
Right.
to a kind of human interaction at a much lower I don't want to say lower stakes way, but less fraught
Mm.
way, like
Mm.
subtler human interaction
Mhm.
where there's not a power dynamic, right? There's not a
You have to use a totally different skill set to get what you want.
yeah, and the goal is different, right? The goal is trust,
Yeah.
right? Intimacy, however you want to put it.
Um, Speaking of new characters, we
Yes.
have 2 new characters in this episode, and as I was watching, I kind of remembered a little bit of inside baseball. They sort of show up out of nowhere, so both Lang and Wheeler were new characters.
Lang is Barbie of Harris.
Lang is Barbara Eve Harris, who, a couple of years later, I produced and starred in a pilot for the CBC, which turned out not to be very good, but we hired Barbara to be my boss,
Oh,
because
fun.
she's Canadian and such a fantastic actor. And I really, really enjoyed working with her again. She's really wonderful. Um, but I remember it being, like, one of those kind of crazy Hollywood, like, for whatever reason, the 2 characters who had been kind of Mahone's numbers 2 and 3 in episodes 1 and 2. For whatever reason, I don't know if they were on a different show and not available or if the network didn't particularly like their reads or whatever it was just like
They're gone.
the episode, they're gone,
Uh,
and there's 2 more people, and, I remember that happening, and I remember becoming aware because this was early in my career of just like, "Oh, a lot of people watch these dailies. A
mm,
lot of people are
mm.
weighing in on I like this, I don't like that. I want more of this, I want less of that.
And as we've talked about how television has changed so much, there is kind of week to week input as opposed to shooting an entire
Yep.
season in a can, kind of with minimal input. Like there was a kind of
Mhm.
deciding on the go. That may still apply anyway. Yes, but very interesting and with no explanation.
No, none, just they're gone.
Yep.
These 2 are back.
Yep.
And, just like I think I said it on the last episode, but just to have it said, like, Catherine Willis is a terrific actor. Um, and so, you know, if it had to do with someone's opinion of her performance, that was a limited opinion about a limited
Wait,
performance
who did
because she's
Catherine Wheeler play?
Catherine
Sorry,
played the agent that basically Felicia replaces. She was the female agent in the first 2
got it.
episodes. um, who was a local.
Got
Um,
it.
and I worked with her later on Long Road Home, and she's outstanding. But
Mm.
I remembered watching her the first 2 episodes, and I was like, "Wait a minute, how long was she on the show?" And then we got to this one. I was like, "Oh,
Oh, she's
that's right.
gone.
There were overnight executions," and you're just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, now we're doing that." Um,
Can we talk about the scene with your father with Sarah and the governor?
R.I.P. John Hurd.
R.P. John Hurt,
Yeah, we can.
really wonderful actor and a very nice
He's
guy.
so good.
Did you enjoy working with him?
He's so good. I loved working
Yeah,
with him because working with him was
yeah,
effortless. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it's the best kind of work where you're just like, well, as long as I know my lines,
Yes,
all I have to do is say them in the right
and
order.
the bad
And
guy from Big.
the bad guy from Big.
Yeah, you
Um,
guys have that scene's really beautiful, and I mean, it must be so tempting, especially like both on the page, but also then just the situation to you underplayed it so beautifully. I would think there's certain pitfalls in scenes like that, which is, you're not
mm,
getting a lot of screen time. There's this emotional thing where you've been busted and you're confronting your father and you know all the backstory and you want to just do all the acting, all the backstorying. And then at the same time, I
that's
would
really
also
funny.
say you haven't worked in 4 months.
Right.
It's like
You're so
you've
rusty.
moved. Well, even Rusty, you're just like, champing at the bit. It's like, let's go. You've
Oh,
you've like, you're like, let me out of it. Put me in the game. Like it's not like, oh, I have 4 scenes today. I have 3 scenes tomorrow. You're like, okay, I got all this time to gear up. And anyway, what I'm saying is that you fell
yeah,
into
yeah.
none of those traps. And also the work is just beautiful. It's so subtle, and
Thanks.
really what's great, and this show really every show needs, but this show really needs because there's with these individual family storylines, there's
Mm,
all this story informing what's going on that we don't see, we only hear about. And
mhm,
so you just have to buy this
mhm,
parental dynamic, and you do.
mhm,
You get the like whatever it's go to hell dad, the like he's gonna let you rot there.
mhm,
Like it's
mhm.
underplayed by both of you, which makes it land harder because you think this
Oh,
is a
cool.
conversation they've had in one way or another for
Over
20 years.
and over. It's a lot of what you said is really interesting, especially at that point in my career. Um, I don't remember what it was, but I remember seeing something, a few things, on television just growing up and just feeling nauseated at the amount of acting that was
Yeah,
happening.
sure.
And all that mattered to me was that I not do
Yeah.
that. Not all that mattered to me, but, like, that was such a central driver. I remember several times in season 2, like, the direction that I would get when I got direction, which sometimes you were just, like, on a schedule and you didn't get any, was, "Can we see a little more?"
Hmm.
And I remember shooting this stuff in the early parts of season 2, and I remember internally just feeling really numb.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I don't know how much of that was, I just moved to Dallas. I'm discovering that, like, Dallas and I do not get along well. Um, just feeling kind of weird and
But
alienated generally, but also very like, but it all felt like the character,
but
just like
yeah,
that
and you
numbness
didn't
of
push
like,
against it. I mean, I think the impressive part
"What
is
did I do?"
the impressive thing there is that you just did it. Um, you you just feel so present, and John Hurd does too.
He's so good. I mean, he's so good, like, you can be present with him, and I think that's the thing, like, a really good actor, right, is someone that you can be present with because you don't have to be like, to put it the other way, when someone isn't quite doing their
You have
work,
to self-generate, as we call it.
you have yeah, you've gotta, like, imagine what a good performance would be like. Not to be rude, but
No,
that's
it's true.
nobody ever had to do that with me.
Um,
Um,
as Judith Light said, your job is not to act, it's to be.
yeah, listen, just listen.
Yeah.
Following up,
Yes.
so we were talking, during the rewatch, Dee Dee Franklin, who plays C Note's daughter, the whole family is
Wonderful.
warrior
Yeah.
actors. I mean, like, all of them are amazing. But we were wondering who she is and where she is now because she would probably be nearly 30 because this is
19
19
years
years
ago,
ago now,
yeah.
right? Um So her name, I guess, is Helena Cleavorn, and at least according to IMDb, this is the only acting she ever did.
Huh.
Maybe she is now working as an aerospace engineer or something. I don't know, but, if you know Helena Cleavorn, or if you are Helena Cleavorn and you know what became of her, or maybe look, maybe she's a huge Broadway star and she, like, did nothing but, theater ever since, but she was wonderful, looked so much like the woman playing her mom.
Yeah.
It's
It's great
wild.
casting.
Great casting. Um,
Yeah, that family
yeah,
dynamic is really wonderful and just
it is.
gets more and
It's
more
so good.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, I when he was like, "Are you keeping your appetite up?"
Yeah, something's coming.
Something in the pit of my stomach was like, "Oh, this gets bad. I forgot all about this, and it gets bad."
Um,
Um,
I
yeah.
wanted to mention that the nurse in the scene
Oh, when I'm checking out, right?
when you're checking,
Checking out of the
yeah,
hospital right before
yes,
they
it's
arrest
Alison
me.
Tolman.
Yeah, who is she? Who's that?
She's like triple Emmy nominated. She may have won
Oh,
for
wow.
Fargo. She was like the female lead in Fargo season 1.
Amazing.
She
Oh, that's
Yeah,
her?
and then
Oh my god, she's
she was on that
amazing.
show. She was like the lead of a sitcom on CBS too. Steve Walters, who's another actor that I met on Prison Break season 2, who's part of this Dallas Theater Center kind of group of actors, and I think they had a company. I can't remember. Allison was part of it. Steve was part of it. A lot of the Friday Night Lights actors were part of it, like the locals,
Sure.
Derek
Yeah,
Phillips,
yeah.
Stacey Orstano. And I met Allison, and then I remember her being like, "I'm moving to Chicago. Can you
Was she
recommend?"
local
She
to
was local to
Dallas?
Dallas. I think they all went to
Oh,
SMU,
wow.
and then she moved to
Okay.
Chicago. And I think I helped her get an agent, and I think that agent ended up helping her get Fargo. So I just take full credit.
Yep.
I still haven't
Yep.
received
Yep,
any
yep, yep.
checks, but
You deserve an Emmy for
thank you.
casting,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. By the way, is it that's great. I think there's something what's really cool when you're in the business long enough is you have those moments where you're like, "Oh, this person's for real." And every now and again, you've got the opportunity to
yeah.
I it's my favorite thing on the directing side. I had an actor who was the 3rd or 4th choice for the role. Other people weren't available, and I'll be honest,
Mm,
nervous a little bit about
mm,
them. And they gave such an amazing performance that, like, I called the
yeah,
casting director, and I was like, "By the way, they
yeah,
crushed it. The network is thrilled, the
yeah,
studio is thrilled," and they were like, "Great, I'll take a note, I'll
yeah,
bring him in," and it's like, that's cool because so many people have done that for us over the course of our
yeah.
lives. Did your light just
Yep.
fall down?
Second time today. Up, up,
Up, up, up, up, up,
still.
up. You need sunglasses like Dom
Oh
had in
yeah,
the
we had to
car.
talk about sunglasses. Um, I love that you said um that the car is the tattoo of season 2, but also now
Oh,
the car is
Michael's
blown
car?
up. So now the
The
car's
car's now
gone. Bye
blown up,
bye.
but the car had surprise body parts
Okay,
in
can
it.
we talk about that? Like, how were they preserved? I
I
guess they
mean,
wouldn't need to be.
well, no, because if they're too decomposed, I think the question is when did the body parts get put into them because they were sealed, but obviously he didn't leave them in there
No, I think
9
he
months
did.
or
Also,
3 months
it's
ago?
like story wise, it's like 3 months.
Right, but still 3
Yeah, it
months
would
of
decompose, but if you're gonna blow it
blood?
up anyway, there's gonna be
Yeah,
DNA,
and I guess if it's
bones. Yeah.
sealed. Oh, yeah, I don't remember a scene. P.S. I have these moments all the time where we're doing this rewatch, and I'm like, fans are probably gonna be like, "You dummy, it's 3 episodes now that we find out that he whatever,"
Oh,
so I apologize to fans who know the show better
that's
than we
part of
do,
the
but,
fun.
um but I don't have a memory of a conversation with someone who's like, "Do you remember when I brought you body
Right.
parts and I sold them
Who's
to
this
you for"
guy?
in my mind, they're
Yes,
Transylvanian.
it's
They're
Dracula.
they're
It's Dracula.
Transylvanian. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I'm Transylvanian, so this is me This is me dogging on
Okay,
my own people
it's an
here.
in what are they
Um,
in what do they call it? Not in crowd joke, in group joke.
an
In group joke.
insult, an
Okay.
in-group joke. This is what we
Yep.
vampires say to each other all the
Mm.
time. Um,
Can I Yes,
so yeah,
I was moving
please,
along.
me move.
Is that your first was that your first perp walk?
Yes, on the show, it's
No,
my first perp walk.
no, well, not in real I'm not talking about life. I'm talking about acting.
No, it wasn't my first acting perp walk because I did an episode of LA Dragnet
What?
starring Ethan Embry and oh my god, I can't
Starring
believe I just
Ethan.
forgot his name. Ethan Embry and, he's such a famous
Wait,
actor.
I always confuse Ethan Embry with Ethan, no,
Not
I know.
Hawke. So the dad in who's the dad in Married with Children?
Ed O'Neill.
Yes. So it was starring Ed O'Neill and, Ethan Embry, and now I feel terrible because Ed could not have been nicer. But
You
I,
got perp walked.
uh I got perp walked. It was a wild audition. I was in LA for the first time in my life. I was testing for the Tarzan pilot. My agent called me and was like, "They're casting this episode of Dick Wolf's new show. They're looking for the, Colonel of the Week or whatever. The audition's tomorrow morning." I was like, "Sure." So it's my first
And
audition
you
in
got
LA.
it. She
I
booked
go
it.
in. It's Juan Campanella, who had not yet won his Academy Award for The Secrets in Their Eyes, but, uh years
Uh-huh.
later, when I was read the Colony pilot and was like, "I have to be a
Uh,
part of this," and they said, "We don't want you to even audition. We won't see anyone from Walking Dead for this because we want them to be totally different shows." I was able to secretly tape something and send it to Juan, and who was directing that pilot, and that was the reason I think I got that pilot because Juan's like, "No, I've worked with her."
See, there you go.
So it's that one of those
Just, just,
anyway, so I was perp walked
just
there.
like, but just like you were saying before, like you work with these people, and so these relationships can come back around.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're like, "Now he's
Uh,
got an Oscar." Um, so perp walking. But there's so much more of it that happens in season 2 and
did they
3 and 4,
actually? Do
like,
you remember? Did they actually cuff you?
I don't remember. I don't remember. It wouldn't have bothered
Yeah.
me if they had, like, I
No,
don't
no.
feel
Yeah.
claustrophobic about that kinda thing.
That's what I was wondering. People are
Um,
just faking it.
I probably back then would have been like, "Just do it for
Yeah.
real."
Same.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Same.
that 'cause
100%.
the idea of where the camera's above it, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
none of that means anything to me. Just do it for real." There was an enormous amount of car, vehicle stuff in this between Sucre and the
And the
motorcycle cop
boys.
and the boys and Mahone.
Yeah.
It's a lot of shooting
Yeah.
in cars because you shoot one direction, then you gotta
Or
back up and
sometimes
you
I
start
would
at the
think maybe
exact
in
same
Texas
place
you don't
and
need to because it's just a lot of
prairie is
prairie in
prairie
the
is prairie.
background. But
Yeah,
it can be a challenging way to shoot. Um,
especially because 'cause you've gotta have the air
oh,
conditioning off for sound, and it's
and the windows
98
up.
degrees Fahrenheit.
Which brings us to a
Yeah,
sunglasses
although
question.
yeah, I
Like,
love shooting with sunglasses.
a lot of times they really don't like it. I remember I had to fight for it in season 1, and then it became kind of a big part of my character.
Yeah. It did. It did. Um I got in trouble once for allowing an
Uh-huh.
actor to wear
When you were
sunglasses
directing?
in a scene.
Mm.
Yeah, and they were like, "He tries to do this every episode. We should have told you in prep that you have to be aware of this, but, you know, they don't like it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm super sorry." I think it's cool.
I get why. I mean, I also think that things have changed. Yeah, anyway, things have changed so much in how things are
Things have changed a lot.
shot, Um,
Mhm,
you could still get a sense of somebody without having to be up in their eyes the whole time.
mhm. Yeah, and I've always been a fan that withholding a gaze from the audience and then landing it is powerful and
You
interesting,
mean the
whereas
old Caruso?
even without sunglasses. Just like I've never understood there is often an instinct that shows up in television actors who've been at it for a while to
Oh
look at
God,
whoever
yes.
they're talking to, and it drives me
Yeah,
a little bit nuts,
that's not how we
because
behave in real life. Yeah,
people don't do that. People don't do that. It's really
Well,
weird, and it always feels
they
false. And
all
so
often that was the way you were directed for. I mean, at the beginning of my career, certainly was, and also I think
absolutely.
the technology has changed. Our TVs, like even when we started, TVs were small
Mhm. And deep.
and
They were
deep,
the opposite of
but
flat screens.
meaning
They
everything
were
was
like
shot. Everything really had to play in a close. Everything. Oh my god, everything really
right.
had to play in a close up. You can see as I talk about technical things how good I am technically.
You're
Right,
so good
everything had to
technically.
play in close up because otherwise you couldn't see. And now on our huge
Right.
TVs, you could play a
In
medium, you
HD.
can play a lot, a further away shot and still
That's
see the
true.
expression on someone's face.
Although weirdly, people are now watching things on their phones,
Yeah,
which
well, fuck
breaks
them.
my heart. Like, every time I see somebody watching something on their phone on an airplane, I wanna tap them on the shoulder and be like, "Hi, 200 people worked really hard on that, and you're killing all of us. I'm really grateful that you're engaging with our content, but you're also killing all of us."
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So, I know
Not
it's
putting
rough.
that genie back in the
Um,
bottle.
we
Get to fan
should
questions?
we should get to fan questions.
Okay.
Let's take a break and then come back from, our
We'll be
break
right
and
back.
do some fan questions.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Here are some fan questions you were all kind enough to drop in the comments on our Instagram, which is at Prison Break Podcast. At
Wait, can I ask you because this is one of
yes.
my favorite questions, and it's for you. At Claw XRA for Paul. Some of this we already covered, but the last part of it, I just think is such an endearing, wonderful question. How different was it to interpret Lance compared to Kellerman and his other characters/personalities? Some of the features that charmed Sarah belonged to Kellerman himself. Does it make you believe that in another reality where he didn't go as far as torturing her, they could be good friends?
Uh,
I love that question
Good friends?
so
I don't
much.
know. Um,
If you hadn't
I will
tortured her.
say this. I think that Kellerman has, in season 2, a lot of epiphanies about where his own life has taken him and where he may have made some wrong turns. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that one of the reasons why he had not such a hard time charming Sarah is because he genuinely respects and likes Sarah. I think that he
Mm.
sees a kindred spirit in someone who does some extrajudicial shit that they believe in, and I think he respects her as a doctor
Mhm.
and an
An
ideologue.
ideologue.
So I would say,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that they could have liked one another, and if had he not tortured her, and
Had he not tortured her.
yeah,
It's such an amazing there were actually several, um, questions that I did not see coming that I hadn't and these are sort of more generally in the season, but about, like, did Kellerman have feelings for her? And that was wild to me because, I mean, I'm trying to find
interesting.
because that one never crossed my mind, and I don't remember us ever having, a conversation about that this was all a purely professional torturing,
I mean, I think that was Kellerman's
really.
thing was right trying to keep this, uh, you know, it's not personal, it's just professional. But I feel like, and we'll get to it. I don't. It's not certainly
Yeah.
not the next episode, but down the line when he actually does torture her, that Utanus
Mhm.
directed that episode. It wasn't easy for him, and that really pissed him off. I mean, there's a whole
Mhm.
thing in the
Mhm.
bedroom where he's like, he doesn't want to have to do this, and he's mad. He's like mad
Yeah.
at you
Right.
because you're
For bringing out a
mad at
humanity
you for not
in you.
complying to the information I wanted because now I have to like he
Oh,
says, and
right.
now you're gonna die. Like, God damn it, don't make me do this kind
Right.
of thing.
Right. Right. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Wanzwan Wang, I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, at YANXUAN_WENG asks, were there any unscripted moments that were kept in the show? Sarah, do you recall?
I'm crap at this. Um, I do remember there was a photo that got used over and over and over and still is, that was not a photo from the show, but was a
Oh,
photo from rehearsal. And it was interesting because it became kind of iconic between Michael and Sarah, but we never it was not a scene. So we were rehearsing it's a it's a scene where they come back together for the first time since the breakout. I don't remember when it is, but
is it on the
it's in the
train?
first half of the second season.
Okay.
No. No, no. Because before well, we'll get there, but it's before all the torture stuff. They meet up, and if my memory serves, Wentworth had, worked on some of his lines, and so I got there and I was like, "Okay, let me work on some responses," and so we were like, "Give us a second to run these lines to really get them into our bones before we start shooting." And we were running them and running them and running them, and I remember being hot, and I put my
Oh, I know that
arms up
picture.
on Wentworth's shoulders, and we're just running lines and talking, and then I don't think I even noticed that anybody was taking a picture, but in the scene, they don't touch. She never puts her hands on him like that, and it was interesting because I see that photo a lot when it comes to the sort of
Uh,
Michael Cera season 2 of it all, but we weren't even rehearsing the scene, we
wow,
were
that's
just
so
drilling
funny.
lines. Um,
There's
so
one in the torture
that's
sequence
all
that's a funny story that I kind of feel like Utanus screwed me on purpose, which is okay. It's okay. I get what he was
really?
doing, which we'll get to when we get there. I don't want to spoil it. And then I will say that with some of the Lance stuff, there were things that I added for sure, and
Oh,
definitely. I mean,
yeah.
memorably, I remember saying, my
Pinch a
name is not
crack.
Lance, and I'm not an ad.
My name is
I
N
made up.
Yep, but I think didn't you even do pinch a crack, dollop a smack? I feel
No, I
like
think
some of that
that was
was that scripted? I gotta find my
scripted,
season
but
2
there
scripts.
was a thing I did in the pie scene that was not scripted that I did it try to do it as an inside joke for my fiance at the time, which made it in.
Aw.
It was a line reading. It
Um,
wasn't the line itself. Yeah.
the line itself.
It was a high pitched. Now
Okay.
that's good pie. Do you know what that's?
That's
It
yeah,
was from.
it
It
sounds
was
like Mr.
from.
Hanky the Christmas Pooh
It was from South Park.
from South Park.
I'm a towel. You're a towel.
Yeah, Mr. Hanky the
You're a towel.
Oh, it's Towley! I was
Oh,
thinking,
it's got to be the
"Howdy
same
ho,
one
boys
of
and
them doing
girls.
the voice. Yes.
It's Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh." Yeah, for sure. Okay, I've got another question
Yeah.
for you before we do our sign off here. I wanna because you're really good at this. You're the music guy. Your light keeps falling, and obviously you're not a lighting guy, but you're a music guy. So at Danny underscore
Ooh.
Bittencourt 19 asks if you could choose a theme song for
Oh,
Sarah and Michael, which song would it be and why? Which is kind of
Sarah and
cool. And I
Michael.
also then want to challenge you with a theme song
I
for
mean, Sarah
Kellerman and
and
Sarah.
Michael has to be faith, doesn't it? You gotta have faith.
Like George
I mean, it
Michael?
wasn't that was like your
Oh,
guys' kind of catchphrase.
oh, that's
Just
really
have a little
sweet. The
faith.
Just Have a Little Faith. Or is that Michael and Lincoln? Because my camera's freaking out. Or is that Michael and Lincoln because it
If
starts with the "Just have a little faith" between the 2 of them, but it does quickly migrate.
but the
Yeah, and I
faith, the
guess
George Michael faith is pretty sexual. Yeah, so that's not.
definitely
Yeah,
sexual. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Probably
yes.
not about touch your body
Um,
with brothers. Okay, okay, I'll
and then there's
I'll go
another
with that one.
one. What is the other faith song I'm thinking of? I don't remember. And then Kellerman and Sarah. I'm thinking of
That's an
torture
interesting prompt,
songs,
hey?
but that's Friends, torture,
Right?
something like that.
Tortured Poets Department?
What is that? Oh, that's T Swift.
Mm,
Is that?
that's Taylor Swift, album. But I can't actually name a song on it. Um,
Uh,
that would be funny actually if Sarah and
Here's a good
Kellerman's theme
question.
song was Taylor Swift.
At
I'm
Raphael, Rafael. Do you think Sarah actually believed Michael had just used her to open the door at any point in season 2? Or Had she always known that she meant something more to him and was being manipulated by the cops to think otherwise? And I'm sure this is something that even during season 1 went back and forth for Sarah, questioning his motives. But at this point, let's say a few episodes in, she had the accidental overdose.
Yeah.
Her father's pressuring her. She's going to her meetings. Where is she on the Michael of it all at this point, do you think?
I think 100% I was used.
I'm
100%. I don't think, even though there's that swan that says there's a plan to make all of this right or whatever, like, I think to prioritize your health and your recovery, you have to go, this guy's out of my life. 'Cause also he's a
and he put you in this
felon on the
situation.
run. Like, he's either
Yeah.
and he ruined my life. I mean, let me put it this way, he's somebody who, no matter how he may have felt about me, was willing to ruin my
Well
life
put.
to get what he wanted. And, like,
And
don't run towards those guys.
He set you,
This is my advice to
he set
anybody
you
out
pretty
here.
far
Don't
back.
run towards those people. Set me very far back and could have, I mean, the big question mark, of course, is he didn't know that I was an addict, and so probably couldn't have predicted the relapse or
Yeah,
anything.
well.
That's on me, not him. And quite frankly, I think the big book would say, take responsibility for your relapses. Don't put them on anybody
But
else.
also, don't put a lot of
But I
faith
don't
in
think
those
there's
people
any.
too, right? I mean, that's a
Yeah,
toxic relationship.
these
to
aren't
say the
people who
least.
are
Literally
and
and figuratively.
figuratively. Absolutely. Okay, so these are great questions. We'll keep chipping away. You guys keep sending.
That's all we got time for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is. But thanks for the questions. Thanks for being here. Don't forget, you can subscribe to our watch party, which is a lot of fun. And it also gives you access to the Discord community, which is really
and Fanfiction
freaking
Friday.
beautiful. These folks are great. And Fanfiction Friday. And that's all available on Patreon, which is available in the link to the show on the link in the show page wherever you're listening right now. And here's our call-in question for the week, because we have an actual call-in line that you can use the telephone.
Ooh.
If you were sent to prison,
Ooh.
what job would you want at Fox River? Would you want to be in the laundry with Manche? Would you want to be in the kitchen? Would you want to be on the landscaping crew, prison library, whatever? How are you going to earn your 19 cents an hour or whatever? And then what are you saving up to buy at the prison canteen? So our call-in line is 4013-P-BREAK, BREAK, and we'll play our favorites in a special episode.
And finally,
later
our wrap-up
this
question. This whole season, we'll ask all our guests and anybody else who comes our way, if you were fleeing the law, where would you go and why? I answered this in episode 1. Sarah, now it's your turn.
Yeah, and I knew this was coming, and I should have prepared something. Where would I go and why? I do love the sunny beach plan. I'm tempted to say, I mean, the Bahamas probably doesn't have much of an extradition thing, and I do have a good friend who lives there. I do prefer a more tropical situation. The Bahamas didn't have a whole lot in the way of, like, trees and stuff, so maybe, like, New Zealand. Yeah, I'd go to the South Island of New Zealand because it's gorgeous, and I feel like you could hide out there, and Jacinda Ardern is amazing, and maybe she'd let me just,
now
live
the
in a
authorities
tent
are gonna comb through this podcast. They're
sheepfield.
gonna know exactly where you're going. Maybe she's lying, and she'll actually be in the mountains of Alaska.
She'll be dead, though. I have no mountain Alaska survival skills.
Thank you for listening.
All right, well, thanks,
remember
everybody.
To subscribe to the Watch Party episodes on Patreon, the link to which is on the show page, wherever you're listening to right now. Hit us with the call and questions of the week. Again, that's 4013-P-BREAK. Drop us your questions at Prison Break Podcast on Instagram. And we'll see you next week. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. All right. Prison Breaking with Sarah and Paul is a Caliber Studio production.
Your hosts have been inmates Sarah Wayne Callis and Paul Edelstein.
Our prison warden is producer Ben Haber. The frontman of our jailhouse rock band is the one and only Paul Edelstein, who made all of our music.
And Prison Yard tattoo artist, logo brand designers John Nunziato and Little Big Brands. Check him out at www.littlebigBrands.com.
Find us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. Email us at pbpodcast@caliber-studio.com or call us at 4013-P-Break.
Prison Breaking and Sarah and Paul has been a Caliber Studio Productions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. MSRP. Taxes and title not
Taxes
for...
and failure in fight.
Exactly. Bye, guys.
Void in the state of California.
Void where prohibited.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.